All right, thank you everyone for coming to this presentation. I'm honored to do this in partnership with Northbridge. Matt's from Northbridge is here with us today. Thank you for coming, Matt's. Thank you for inviting me to do this with you again. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Josh Schoonover. I'm a DSO working for a college here in Southern California. I'm also the founder of Ask a DSO, a free community for online students. And today we're going to be focusing on providing clarity around work authorization, especially when it comes to OPT and STEM OPT. But we'll get started with some general work authorization matters also. And the reason that we're doing this is because one of the biggest gaps that both me and Northbridge have seen is a real unfortunate lack of confidence from international students in the regulations that allow them to work here in the US. And it's completely understandable because many employers don't understand that international students are authorized to work in the US. Many of the ways that employers are used to vetting, candidates for their eligibility to work does not is different than what international students do. So, um, if you're familiar with the term gaslighting, gaslighting is when, somebody makes another person question reality. And in many ways, international students are gaslit about their work authorization by just this constant stream of, are you sure you can work? I don't think you're able to work. We don't know how to do this. Um, but it is something that you do have access to in a few different ways, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We'll also talk about some of the timelines and deadlines because those are real important to be aware of too. And I will have a time for Q&A at the end. So if you could please hold your questions to the end, write them down if anything's coming up, put them in the chat. We can go through the chat later on and I can go back and find questions there too. But the goal of this session is to help you understand both the work authorization as well as when you're able to legally work here in the US, to be fluent in the timelines for both OPT and STEM OPT, to understand the I-983 if you're going to be now or in the future applying for the STEM OPT extension, and most importantly, how to communicate all of these things to your employers in a clear, confident, and concise manner, something that's direct and short so that they're able to, understand and be confident in hiring you as well. For some reason, it's not letting me click down to my slides. There we go. All right, so the first phase is understanding when you can work in the US, and there's a few different ways you can do that as an international student. Um, it's really important that everyone understands, and I believe you all do, that's why you're all here, that in order to work in the US, you do have to have work authorization. Now, we live in the world where working is kind of muddy. Like, is this work? Is this not? I have an Instagram account where I have some followers. I get some paid ads. Maybe I have a Facebook marketplace where I sell some old books or clothes or things like that. Um, the general understanding is that if it's a periodic, inconsistent, informal way of generating money, usually that's viewed as being okay. So like if I was going to, if I was going to sell clothes on Facebook Marketplace, that's not really a business. Something like a having a Shopify store where you constantly have things that are listed and it's a bit more regimented, maybe that is working. But when for the purposes of this, we're going to kind of keep most of our discussion to working in the classical sense where you have an employer, you go to an office or a place of work and you get a paycheck for your wages. So the earliest that many international students can work is through either curricular practical training, CPT, or through on-campus work. So if you work at a big university like the University of Texas or any of these schools with, 10, 20, 30,000 students, there's often lots of on-campus opportunities for students. Maybe you work in the cafeteria, the bookstore, the library, something like that. That is available to you as an international student. CPT is something that the regulations do allow. It's up to the individual school how much and to what extent they're going to allow international students to do it. So, one of the ways that my institution, one of the things that my institution does is we allow work authorization through CPT for our graduate students from the start of their program. Other schools may make you, complete an academic year first. Others may others may limit to, summer semester only. It just depends on what the institution is offering. When it comes to after you complete your time, studying in the U.S. After you complete your studies, after you complete your program, you have the option to do what's known as optional practical training or OPT. And this is approved by the government, not the university. The university gives you a I-20 with a recommendation for OPT, but it's ultimately approved by USCIS. And as long as you get approved, then you're able to remain in the US and work for 12 months after the completion of your program. Excuse me. Students who completed a STEM degree, something in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, are qualified to apply for an additional 24-month STEM extension. So sometimes students will say, if I do a STEM program, do I get 3 years? It's not really 3 years, it's more like a 1+2 because you have to get two separate authorizations, and we'll talk about that more a bit later. The one other way that I'll just touch on very briefly that an international student can work is if you get approved by USCIS for economic hardship. There are very specific requirements for people there's very specific eligibility requirements for this. It's not just that, I'm broke or I need to work, but if there's a natural disaster in your home country, if there's a sudden devaluation in the currency of your home country, uh, um, significant change to the sponsor that sponsored your I-20. And you do have to be an international student for 1 year before you're eligible for economic hardship. But that is available also. If you think it may qualify for you, you can ask your DSO because they need to give you the I-20 recommendation for economic hardship, and then you need to apply with USCIS. So I mentioned CPT and OPT already. One of the things to keep in mind for those of you whose institutions do allow CPT participation is that if you do CPT for 12 months or longer during the course of your program, that makes you ineligible to do OPT afterwards. Now, you can do as much on-campus work or as much part-time CPT, 20 hours per week or less. You can do as much of that as you want. It doesn't impact your OPT eligibility. But once you exceed 12 months of full-time CPT, you lose eligibility to apply for both OPT and STEM OPT until you complete another program of study at the next highest level. So really important to be aware of what your plans are after you graduate. And that's not to say that doing more than 12 months of CPT is necessarily bad or the wrong answer. I work with some doctorate students who say that, their program is not STEM designated, and they know that they're going to be doing a doctorate program for 4 years, 5 years. So why would they not work for 5 years to keep 1 year of work eligibility? It just depends on the person in this situation. Um, this column here on the right, you can see, just a quick snapshot, some of the differences between CPT and OPT. CPT is during the program, it's approved by the university. It does have to be directly related to your program of study. OPT does also, but that's after you graduate and it's approved by USCIS. There is pre-completion OPT for those of you who really know your stuff. Like technically, you can do OPT during your program. I don't recommend it personally because it has to be part-time and it takes away from your post-completion OPT eligibility. So you might as well just do part-time CPT and keep your 12 months of OPT. All right. we're going to start getting into timelines now. And the next slide is going to talk a bit about as early as you can apply for OPT. Um, but the deadlines are really where I see really critical mistakes that are they seem punitive, honestly. People make, very honest mistakes that have very significant consequences, on their future plans. So it's very important to be aware that, when the day after the program end date on your I-20, you're now in your grace period. You get 60 days. Um, if you applied for for OPT and it's extending the processing time is extending beyond the end of the 60-day grace period, you do still have legal presence. So you're able to stay in the US even though you're beyond the 60-day mark. The risk there is that if your OPT is denied for whatever reason, it gets denied, and then your CVIS record is immediately changed to completed status, and you're now out of status. So I do recommend applying earlier, which I'll talk about in just a second. But obviously, most of you will apply during the approved period. It's a bit frustrating because you'll get the notice that you're approved, but the EAD card doesn't come until a week later. We generally advise students to not start working under OPT until they received their EAD card. But if you do have the approval notice from USCIS, technically at that point you are authorized to work. So yeah, getting into the timeline now. There's very specific timelines for applying for OPT. You can apply as early as 90 days before you graduate. You can apply as late as the end of your grace period. So you effectively have a 150-day period to apply for OPT. I have worked with a student who applied 91 days before, and their application was rejected for applying too early. Now, fortunately for this person, she got the denial notice during her grace period, so she was able to file for a new OPT application, but she did have to file a new application fee, and she did have to wait an additional 3 months. But so it's very important to be aware of where you are in the process, and also that you're communicating with the DSOs at your school. Um, there are times when the student will, run into the office frantic that, their grace period ends tomorrow and they need to apply for OPT, but they don't know how. They don't have an I-20 with OPT or anything like that. Sometimes we're able to help them, sometimes we're just not. At that point, it's a very quick turnaround. So really important that you're starting this process early and getting the school gives you an I-20, but there's other requirements that you need to put together also. Um, and so far, I mentioned, that I've kind of alluded to it. The standard processing time for OPT applications historically has been 90 days. We're seeing that kind of stretch into 4 months right now. Not typically past that, but it does happen. But again, as long as you've submitted your OPT application, you do have legal presence in the US while that's being processed. Um, in terms of picking when you apply and when you apply request an OPT start date. So let's say that my program end date is let's say it's May 15th. I can apply for OPT with a requested start date of May 16th, the day after, I graduate. I want to start working as soon as possible. I also could choose to request a start date that's a little bit later. Maybe like I'm saying there today, it's February 24th. I haven't even started looking for jobs. My resume is not ready. I don't think realistically I'm gonna have a job by the middle of May. So maybe I bump it back a month. That's okay. I can request instead of a May 15th, I can request a June 15th start date because it's still in my 60-day grace period. I can't request it after my 60 day, but I can request one that's a little bit, later on in the grace period. And the reason that I would do that is once your EAD, once the start date on your EAD comes and goes, if you're not working, you're starting to accrue time under unemployment. And in order to maintain status on OPT, you cannot exceed 90 days cumulative of unemployment time. So let's say it took me 30 days after my EAD start date before I was able to start working. And then after 6 months, for whatever reason, me and the company separate. Well, I had 90 days. I've already used 30 of them. So now I have 60 days to find the next employer and start working. So that's where some people will say, I want a little bit more time before, my EAD clock starts. And not everybody does. Some people are doing an internship or, they know right exactly where they're going to work and they apply for the start date to be, immediately after the program end date. Either way is fine. It just depends on your personal situation. Hmm. I talked about this a little bit already, the 90-day unemployment rule. Under the current administration, they are more strict about it than maybe previous administrations were. They've actually added an unemployment counter to student records, which has never been done before. So when I log into a student's record now, I can see exactly how many days of unemployment they've had. Um, so it's important that you report your employment, that you do it in a timely manner. Regulations say you're supposed to do it within 10 days. Um, when you are on OPT, you'll get access to an OPT portal where you can actually log into your own CVIS record and enter in your employer information. It's fine. It's good. You can do that. As a student, you're not able to backdate your start date. So if you started working on October, if you start working on February 15th and now you're looking at this February 24th and you realize, oh shoot, I haven't logged my employment yet, you can contact your DSO at your institution because they do have the ability to backdate OPT start dates. Um, just like CPT, OPT does have to be directly related to your program of study. And one thing that some students will do is they'll take an unpaid internship if they can't get a job to pause the 90-day unemployment clock. Unpaid internships generally are seen as being okay. Volunteering is not. So like once a week at your church or the animal shelter. That generally is not seen as an internship or qualifying for the satisfying the requirement of OPT. Actually, it's supposed to be 20 hours per week or more. So if you can get an unpaid position, uh, you know, in the meantime, while you're looking for work, that's one way to pause the unemployment clock. That's OPT. We'll transition now to STEM OPT for those of you with a STEM qualifying degree. So it effectively triples the amount of time that you're able to work after you graduate from 12 months to 36 months. One thing that's very important to keep in mind is that the STEM employer does need to use E-Verify. That's not required for CPT or for OPT, but it is required for STEM OPT. So, just check with your employer while you're on your OPT if they use E-Verify. And if they don't, you can still take the job, get some experience, stop the unemployment clock on your OPT, but also be applying for other positions so that you can get that job um, prior to applying for STEM OPT because that's a big distinction too. When you apply for OPT, you do not need to have an employer. You are required to have an employer when you apply for the STEM OPT extension. And we'll talk about some of the requirements from that employer in a second. Um, the timeline is different for STEM OPT than it is for OPT. You can apply for the STEM extension as early as 90 days before the end date on your EAD card. So that part is similar. But for the STEM extension, you actually are required to submit while your OPT is still active, not in the grace period. You cannot apply for the STEM OPT extension after the end date of your EAD. So, whereas for OPT, you effectively had 150 days to apply, for the STEM OPT extension, you only have 90 days to apply. That's the bad news. The good news is when you're applying for OPT, you have to wait until you get approval, um, and uh, and you can't start working until you get the EAD card. When you apply for the STEM OPT extension, because you're already working, you're granted a automatic 6 month extension of work authorization while your request is being processed. And that gives the government plenty of time to process it, issue you an RFP if they're so inclined, process that, and then give you the EAD card. Um, and so that's a nice benefit because at that point you do have an employer, you don't have to take a break. You can keep working while the STEM's being processed. One of the things that trips up students and employers a little bit when it's time to transition from the regular OPT to the STEM OPT is the 983 training plan. This is something that the government requires to confirm that the position is related to STEM. So the form itself is 5 pages. At the beginning, you just fill out the first three. Um, the last 2 pages actually have a section for your 12-month update and your final evaluation, because you need to report your employer information every 6 months, and you need to do a new I-983 at the 12 and 24-month mark. So one recommendation that I like to give to students is if you're very familiar with your job duties, you can go ahead and fill out the job duty section, how it's related to STEM, and then present that to your employer and ask them just to sign. You're both going to need to sign it anyways. Sometimes the employers will go through it with you, but sometimes it helps if you fill it out first. Um, you're going to give that to your DSO along with your request for the STEM OPT recommendation I-20. And then your DSO, when they make the recommendation in CVIS, is going to upload the I-983 in your CVIS record. So it does go into your CVIS record. It is logged, and it is a requirement for approval. Uh, Core requirement here, just like with CPT and OPT, the position need to be directly related to your program of study. For STEM OPT, the position needs to be directly related to the STEM component of your degree. So if you did an MBA with the STEM concentration, for example, you need to tie it not to the MBA, but to the STEM concentration. You need to tie your employment to that. The clearer you are, the better. Nice thing is we live in a world with ChatGPT, so you can put your job duties in there and say, I'm filling out 983. Explain how this relates to my STEM degree for MSIT, and ChatGPT will give you an answer. The 983 can be confusing. It can make people a little unsure. But at the heart of the matter, it's really just asking, what do you do? How is it related to your STEM? And then at the 12-month mark, hey, update. It's been 12 months of your STEM OPT. What are you learning? What's the update? It asks how you're supervised. It asks for your supervisor's information. That's one of the things that at the 6 month mark, every 6 months, you're asked to validate your STEM OPT so that, if the address changes or if your manager changes, that gets properly logged in CBIS also. Some of the most common mistakes that I've seen are people that are being too vague. It doesn't really answer the question. It leaves out learning objectives. Learning objectives are gold when it comes to STEM OPT, because when you tie your position directly to learning objectives from your STEM program, that can help reduce the likelihood of you getting an RFE that asks you to confirm, that questions really whether the position is related to STEM. So you want to give them a bunch of that information up front. Uh, it it's the government. Everyone, it does need to be one to one. It needs to be very clear. They generally will not make assumptions or connect the dots for you. So the more clear you can make it for them, the better. I'll give you an example of this. It's outside of STEM, but it kind of drives the point home. Um, yeah, sometimes students will take an authorized early withdrawal during their program of study. They'll leave the U.S. for 2 months and then they'll re-enter the U.S. As a DSO, I can request to have the record reactivated. Um, and I'll often get a request for information from the government. Hey, explain, when they requested their authorized early withdrawal, when they left the US, when they're coming back, when classes are starting. So at first I put it into a proper paragraph, like my English teacher taught me. But what I noticed was that I would get second or even third RFIs asking for information that was in the original letter. So at a certain point, I said, forget about it, and I just put bullet points. Date they requested AEW 1/1/25. Date they left the US 1/15/25. And I sent that, boom, instant approval, no RFI. So the more clear you can make it, the better. Um, And so again, all of this is work authorization and process, and all of this is great. But if you can't explain to an employer why you're eligible to work in a way that makes them feel comfortable, you'll never even get to those points. So confidence is key. You can honestly answer, yes, I'm authorized to work in the US. Some students will even choose to answer no, they do not require sponsorship, nor will they in the future, which is an honest answer because at this point, you don't need sponsorship. You have work authorization, and you will for the next year, the next 3 years. And then, if you want to revisit it in a year, if you're getting glowing remarks in your performance evaluation, your employer will start to talk to you about, hey, what is it that we need to do to keep you? Um, and I see that, Victor did this but got an offer canceled. Unfortunately, employers are going to do what employers want to do. It's up to you as a student the path that you want to take. You can answer that yourself, and just hopefully they're willing to listen. Not all employers are, so it's not about guaranteeing that you have a successful result, but rather maximizing your chances of doing that. Doing it in their language is a great way to do that. I'm authorized for this specific amount of time. If you have a one pager that your school can provide, oftentimes the International Affairs Office or the Career Services Office will have something like that. Um, it's also nice when you come to them with specifics. So, one of the things that they'll say is like, well, when an employer is confirming work authorization, they use something called an I-9 form. And you can get very specific here. You can say, like, if you have OPT, you can say like, yeah, I have the EAD card. It meets the list A document on the I-9. If you have an I-20 for CPT, you can say this is list C, item number 7. Uh, you know, and just spell it out for them again very directly, like, yes, this is work authorization, it's 100% legal, it's a federal authorization. Sometimes employers will be confused, well, is this authorized in my state? It comes directly from the federal government, and obviously the I-20 and the EAD themselves come from United States Customs and Immigration Services, so they are 100% legal work authorizations. When it comes to the most common OPT applications, application mistakes that I see, filing too late is the number one. It also drives me crazy because it's the most preventable, both in terms of applying after the end of your grace period or also applying more than 30 days after the I-20 is issued. that is a requirement that once the DSO gives you the I-20 with the OPT recommendation, you do have to submit your full application to USCIS within 30 days of the issue date of that I-20. So if the DSO emailed you, but you don't see that email for a week, um, you now have 23 days to get your application in. Poor start date strategy is something that's avoidable. I see people who, apply and request for a late start date, but then they come back and they tell me later on that they already have an employer and the employer wants them to start right away, right? To continue right away. If it's early enough, I can cancel the OPT recommendation and issue them a new I-20. But if they've already filed the OPT application, it becomes much more complicated. Um, Waiting too long for STEM, weaker vague I-983 explanations. We've talked about that already. And also again, like the lack of confidence when it comes to interviewing, over explaining work authorization in the cover letter is another one I see. People will spend half of their cover letter explaining why they're eligible to work in the US, and instead of selling themselves as a great candidate for the position. Remember, sometimes the employer wants to know that you're eligible to work in the US. Sometimes they also just want to know that you'll be a good fit for the position. So knowing when to do each of those things. So if this has been helpful, if you want more clarity on, you know, working in the US, OPT, STEM OPT, even transition to other visas, I do have a free community for international students. You can see the link there. I think I can put it in the chat too. So it is something that's free to join if you're interested. Nope, I will have to paste it in there in a second. It's run by me. I post community messages as things come up, notification about events like this, and for those that move up to the premium access, I do a live weekly call where I answer your questions. We can develop strategy and get you ready for whatever the next phase in your journey is. Now, in terms of the presentation portion of this, I am done. But I can go ahead and take questions if anybody has any. Yeah, Gaurav?
Hey Josh, how's it going? Apologies for not having my camera on, actually having some construction at my disposal, but just wanted to thank you and the team for the info session today. Certainly been super helpful for all of us. I'm pretty sure I could say that. So thank you for all the information. But the question I had today, I actually have two questions if you don't mind.
Hmm.
Um, One of them was pretty much so my major that I completed was computer information systems, and that is a STEM major according to the code that I
Hmm.
researched on, like the one that's on your I-20,
Hmm.
right? And it matches the STEM, which means I'm eligible for STEM OPT. However, computer information systems is not really like a either or focused degree, as in it's not a computer engineering or software developing degree. It's a bachelor in business administration, so it has like a combination of both finance, accounting, as well as a little bit of tech. So
Hmm.
those roles that I kind of look for, really blur the lines when it comes to, having to explain um, how it relates to my degree. I kind of had this issue with my OPT, which I'm currently on, and I'm sure it's going to be the same issue. And because it's a little more detailed rather than just putting it in the CFP portal. It's you got to provide a whole training plan, right?
Hmm.
So I think it's a little more detailed. So what do you have any advice for how to go about um, ensuring that there are no blur lines?
Well, thank you for that, Gaurav. And let's be real, with any position, there's always going to be blurred lines, right? Like, I work in international affairs. I work in AI every single day because I use it to automate systems, to quickly review things that would take me a long time to do otherwise, to help put packages together. So, when you fill out the I-983, you're just going to need to emphasize the components of your job that are directly related to using computer information systems. And I'm sure that the position that you're doing, if it's business finance, you're working in some systems, um, just focus on those elements and not as much on the other elements of the position. Every job is going to have a kind of an array of responsibilities that you're responsible for. So for the purpose of your STEM application, the uh, the degree being STEM qualified shouldn't be an issue. It's just gonna be a matter of using that I-983 to spell out directly how exactly which elements of your position are tied back to that. And again, AI is your friend here. Use ChatGPT, Claude, Manus, whatever your preferred AI is. Something that I like to do myself is I'll ask it to do something for me and it'll give me, it'll give me an answer. And then I'll say, um, where is there ambiguity in this? Or how could this be more clear? Or how could we make this even better? And ask it to iterate two or three times and it'll dial down, every time you ask it to do that, it'll give you an even better and better answer. So, your position and your degree program specifically I would have pretty high confidence that that could get approved because it seems pretty straightforward to me. So and I've helped over 4,000 students get approved for OPT and STEM OPT. So I've seen a lot of applications here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's exactly kind of what I did with my current OPT. So, I currently work as a private equity operations associate,
Oh,
and
cool.
that role involves a lot of like automation of financial processes, which is
Okay.
directly tied into, finance and tech, right? So that's kind of how I played that card. Even after my DSO telling me, "Hey, this doesn't seem like it's related to your degree." So, yeah, but thank you so
Yeah,
much for
I mean,
that.
some DSOs can be sticklers about stuff like that, but to me, it seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Could I ask a second question if that's okay?
Yeah, let's give you one more, and then we'll open up and we'll see if other people have some, and then we can circle back if there's more.
Sure. Just one more. Thank you so much. Could I switch at any point to a master's at this point if I'm currently in my OPT and I decide like I want to pursue further studies?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll just be forfeiting your OPT at the bachelor's level.
As in, and could I do this after my OPT expires? Or like,
Yeah, you could yes, there's two paths to going to a master's degree. Sometimes people on OPT, they're not finding the job. Their 90-day unemployment is coming close. So they end their OPT and they transfer to a new program. That's one way to maintain status. The other way to maintain status is to complete your OPT and then enroll in a new program of study. You can do it a couple different ways. You can do it where you exhaust your all of your OPT and then you stop working and you enroll in a new program and you don't work until that new program starts if you're doing the program with day one CPT. Or you could try to find a school whose start date lines up pretty closely to your STEM OPT end date. A lot of students will actually end their STEM OPT a couple weeks early to get enrolled in the program that's about to start, so that they can continue through day one CPT. So all of those paths are available.
and then does that reset the OPT thing? So let's say I do the master's, so I could do CPT and then OPT and STEM OPT again, or
At the master's level, yes. So you can do STEM OPT. You can do OPT at every program level as you go up. So you do bachelor's OPT, master's OPT, doctorate OPT.
okay, cool. So I could essentially do another OPT plus STEM OPT.
Yes, correct.
Okay, cool. That answers my question. Thank you so much, Josh, and thank you everyone else for
Absolutely, Rob. Thanks for your kind words.
cheers.
Uh, Hi, Josh. I have a question. Thank you. It's very helpful. I have a question about if the employer is not e-verified, so they would hire me, but then they not e-verify. So the next year, like, what would be your suggestions? Like, let's say I want to stay with the company. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. It's not possible through STEM OPT, unfortunately. You could do what I was just talking about with Gaurav. You could enroll in a different program that allows day one CPT, and you could continue with that employer through CPT. But the E-Verify is a requirement for the STEM OPT approval.
Oh, okay. I think the process is very easy. Like I look it up, it's so easy. I don't know why they don't do it.
It is a very easy process for employers to get E-Verify, and it's free. The government
Yeah.
just wants they don't look to make money off of it. Well, for now with the current president, he likes to assign fees to everything. But they do like companies to go through it. But yeah, some of them won't because uh, employers are not required to use it. But once you become an E-Verify company, then now you are required to use it for all of your employees. So, um, but yeah,
Uh,
I have had students in the past who have convinced their employers to register for E-Verify. So if you're able to do that, great. If not, then your options would be to enroll in a different program and stay with the company through CPT or look for a different employer.
yeah. My second question is like let's say I just find a job that not STEM. I'm in a STEM MBA, but like I find a door-to-door sales job. Can I
Okay.
ask the employer to create some part of the job to make it align to STEM, but most of my job would be door-to-door sales.
It's certainly possible. You could work with them to see if there's something that's directly related to your program of study that you could add on in addition to doing the sales position. Lots of companies do like innovation and creativity. So if you're able to, develop something that helps the entire company and it relates to your program, that would be an option that you could discuss with them. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Josh.
Yeah. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, Yash, I see your hand up.
Hi, thanks for this opportunity to ask a question. So I do have a question. So I do have uh what do you say? So I do have uh, experience back in my India. So I just want to keep a startup company right over here. So can I keep a startup company uh when I'm a student?
Is the company in the US or back home?
No, in the US. I will just want to start it right here.
Okay. So, yes, with some restrictions. So when an international student is on OPT, they can be self-employed. They can start their own business. Um, for the STEM OPT extension specifically, that does not allow people to work for themselves. CPT and STEM OPT don't allow it. Regular 12-month OPT does. So some of the ways that students will design this is the example I'd like to use is a lemonade stand because it's pretty simple. So let's say during my 12-month OPT, I create a lemonade stand and I get the business licenses and I get the modeling and I'm like looking at the ads and the conversions and the finances and I'm working the stand. I'm doing all of those different things. And then I go to STEM OPT. The stand can continue making money. I just can't actively work for it now. I would need to hire somebody to run the stand for me, and then I can collect my residuals as the owner and passive earnings. But I can't actively work for the company that I started. Now, if you started a company with somebody else and somebody else is the CEO and maybe you're the CTO and the CEO, is able to sign your training plan, that might be an option too. So there's a couple ways to make it possible. We just need to be intentional about it.
Okay, got you. I do have one more question. Can I ask? Is it okay for you?
Yeah, yeah, you can get one more, and then we'll go to
Yeah.
Ishimoy.
So, you said like there are totally 90 days of unemployment days, right, in OPT?
Right.
So if I got an offer in 30 days, so remaining 60 days will be counted in STEM OPT, am I right?
So the unemployment does stay with you, yes, but when you get approved for STEM, you get an additional 60 days of
Okay.
unemployment allotment. So at that point, it's not 90 days, it's 150.
So they're going to carry forward, right?
They'll still count. Those first 30 days will still count as unemployment, but now it
Okay.
won't be 30 out of 90. Once you get approved for STEM, it'll be 30 out of 150.
Okay. Okay. Got you.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
So one more last. Is it okay for you?
Okay, last one.
Yeah. Sorry if I bother you a lot. So you said that E-Verify is mandatory for STEM OPT. So is without an E-Verify, can an OPT student can be hold a visa?
Yeah, for OPT, yes. For OPT, yes, it's okay. It's just not okay for STEM OPT.
Okay, okay, got you.
All right, thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Josh.
Ishimwe? Ishimwe? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Lena? Okay, maybe she'll come back in a second. Anybody else have anything? Brav's jumping back in. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, if there's nobody, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
It's along the same lines as what Yesh was saying. So, for example, it's a very particular scenario. Let's say I had a couple of friends in college who were looking to start a company, right? And let's say they did within the time of my OPT, and now, because I need to get on STEM OPT, and they also want me to join their team because we had this discussion in school, and we had this idea. So is it possible that they could just, as a company, let's say they're registered and everything, and they just sign up for E-Verify themselves and then hire me? Is that something that works out legally?
100%. It's a legal company, and like Kim said, it's very easy to do. So yeah, they could absolutely do that.
And do you know if you have to show, like, as a company, would you have to show, like, are there specific documentation, like, you have to show revenues, or like company has to be in operation for at least a year in order to be
No,
E-Verified? No, nothing
no,
like that. Okay.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
Mhm. Last call. Anybody have anything else? Oh, Ishimwe, it looks like she got kicked out of the meeting. Maybe she's back.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I was
There we go.
connecting
Got
to
you
my.
now.
Sorry. Hi, Josh. Thank you so much. This session has been really helpful. I had a
Good.
question about the I-983 form.
Yes.
So I'm currently working with a staffing agency and I'm getting ready to apply for my STEM OPT next week.
Okay.
And I'm kind of confused about the reporting my how I'm supervised. Am I going to use the staffing agency as my supervisor or the company that I'm currently working for?
Staffing agencies are very tricky when it comes to STEM OPT. USCIS is not like staffing agencies. So if at all possible, get the information for the company where you'll physically be doing your work.
Okay, and then if it's not possible, then
You can still apply, but I would keep looking for more permanent positions also.
okay. So in that case, if the company that I'm working for does not complete that form, then I can still use the supervisor from my staffing agency.
Yes, correct.
Uh, Another thing that I was confused about, so let's say the company allows me to name them as my supervisor. Are they the ones who are supposed to sign my form, or like how does the staffing agency come in?
Ideally, they wouldn't. Ideally, it would be done by the company that you'll actually be working for. Um, so it might even be worth having a discussion with your direct manager there, to see
Okay.
if that's something that he or she would be willing to support you with.
All
Now
right.
now you can still apply, but
Mm-hmm.
USCIS denies a lot of people who apply for STEM OPT. They're employed through staffing agencies.
Oh, okay. And then can I still, so my OPT right now is under the staffing agency since they're the ones who employed me. Is that going to affect my STEM OPT application?
Not necessarily. People change their employers when they
Okay.
go from OPT to STEM OPT.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's the question I had. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. Happy to help. Hope it works out for you.
Thank you.
We might have time for one more question. Anybody that's not Gaurav? Gaurav, I like you. I'll let you have another one if no one else does. But is there last call for anybody else?
Yes. So you said USCIS denies the STEM mobility application if I work for a staffing agency. Is that correct?
That's what I've seen quite often. Yeah.
Okay, so do you know what is the reason behind that?
They say that you're not really working with the company. It's a staffing agency that lends you out for temporary work. It's not a full-time permanent position. So
Oh,
it's unfortunate, but that's the stance they've taken. So I want to make sure that people are aware of that. If you can get hired directly by a place, it's better.
oh, okay. Sounds good.
All right. Yeah, Yash, you wanted to hop back in?
Yeah, sorry if everyone's questions has been finished. So I have one more question which is out of box.
Okay.
So thanks again. The thing is like I'm applying many of the roles that is asking for you need a or require a sponsorship or not. So I say I keep like yes for some roles and no for some roles because if you keep yes, so they are going to take my application for the next steps. To be honest, if I keep no, so they are going to reject at the moment because the company is only looking for the people who are permanent visa holders. So, so how to tackle this, how to stop my clock, and how to get a job as soon as possible. Can you give me some like basic ideas or basic tricks that you can that can really help me a lot on this?
Yeah, I mean it's tough, and obviously, one of the best things that you can do if you're not already working with Northbridge is you can work with them because the job postings on their platform are all with companies who are known to be international student friendly. So you're jumping over a huge hurdle already by using their curated job platform. When it comes to answering the question about whether you'll need sponsorship now or in the future. It's a personal decision. Some people say like they want to say yes, I will need sponsorship because if they say no, maybe they'll get an interview faster, but it's not getting them towards their long-term goal of staying with the company and getting sponsored for an H-1B. Some people say I don't really care about H-1B at this point. I just want to start working. And so I'm going to say no, I don't require sponsorship because I can work through OPT and STEM OPT. It's a personal choice.
Okay, got you.
Yeah. Uh, Ishimwe?
Yes, I had one more question. So I'm asking for someone who's working two jobs. They're both full-time under OPT. So when it comes to applying for STEM OPT, like which can they apply for one Like how does that work
They
when
they
applying
can
for STEM
still
OPT?
they can apply to work with both companies. Just both companies would need to meet the STEM requirements. They'd both have to be STEM related positions. The companies would have to be e-verified, and they'd have to work more than 20 hours a week with each company.
Okay, so they can do two companies or just one company?
They can do two
That
as long as they both
okay.
meet the STEM requirements.
All right, thank you. I wanted to come back to the staffing agency question that I was asking you about. So, when filing for STEM OPT, do I have to be a full-time employee for the company, not the staffing agency, or I can still be under contract when applying for that STEM OPT?
It's better if you work directly for the company, but if you're under contract, you can still try to apply.
All right, thank you.
Mhm. All right, Gaurav, now I'm feeling bad. I know you have one more question. I'll let you get one more in and then we'll wrap it up for today. But again, if there's more questions that I didn't get to, join my free community. I put the link in the chat. 100% free to join and you can post questions in there and I'll be happy to get back to everybody. But yeah, Gaurav, did you have one more for me? Oh, did he sign out? All right. Um, Matt's from Northbridge is here. I apologize, Matt. I haven't let you have the floor at all today. Did you want to say any final words before we sign off?
No, I think it was good for me to not have words, so we could center the attention around you and get in depth on the STEM requirements and the processes. In general, I want to thank everybody for attending. And if there's any questions, you can always reach out to us on Northbridge through LinkedIn or reach out to Josh from Ask a DSO, and we'll help you further there. So thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.